Hey guys, tonight we step into a chilly medieval town, where the streets are still wrapped in darkness. The fireplaces are barely awake, and the only sound is the slow drip of last night's rain from crooked wooden rooftops. You imagine you're destined for adventure, perhaps a knight, a merchant, or at the very least someone whose biggest concern is whether the bread will be fresh at sunrise. Instead, fate has a far stranger plan. By the end of tonight, you'll discover that you've become an executioner's apprentice, a job so unpopular that even your neighbors would rather pretend you don't exist. You probably won't survive this, at least not with your expectations intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what your local time is. It's always fascinating to see how many corners of the world gathered together for these quiet nighttime journeys. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The morning begins long before the sun has any interest in rising. Cold air slips through the cracks of your tiny wooden house, encouraging you to stay wrapped beneath your rough wool blanket. Unfortunately, medieval life has never cared much about comfort. Roosters begin shouting somewhere beyond the muddy street. Dogs answer with lazy barks, and someone nearby is already splitting firewood with rhythmic thuds. Normally, your day would be filled with ordinary chores. Today is different. A firm knock lands against your front door. Not the friendly sort. The official sort. When the village bailiff steps inside, everyone suddenly becomes quieter than the morning itself. He doesn't smile. Medieval officials rarely waste energy on smiling when paperwork, or whatever passed for paperwork in the 15th century, is involved. He reads a short order from a folded sheet of parchment. Your apprenticeship has been assigned. Not to a blacksmith, not to a carpenter, not even to the butcher. Instead, your future belongs to the town executioner. Silence settles over the room. Your family stares at the floor as though avoiding eye contact might somehow rewrite the announcement. It doesn't. Within minutes, you're gathering the few belongings you own into a small cloth sack. A spare tunic, thick socks, a wooden spoon. That's about the extent of your worldly possessions. Luxury, after all, is someone else's problem. You step outside into streets that smell of damp earth, smoke, horses, and yesterday's dinner. Medieval towns had many memorable scents. Few people would describe them as pleasant. Children stop playing to watch you pass. Adults whisper behind half-open shutters. One woman quietly makes the sign of the cross. You haven't done anything wrong. Not yet. But people already look at you differently. Executioners occupied one of history's strangest positions. Towns depended on them to carry out legal punishments ordered by local courts. Yet many ordinary people considered them socially untouchable. Their work was necessary, but few wanted them as neighbors. Scholars still argue whether this social isolation varied greatly between regions or remained fairly consistent across medieval Europe. Either way, your new life isn't beginning with applause. The executioner's house sits just outside the busiest part of town, separated by enough distance that everyone can pretend they aren't connected to it. The building surprises you. It's clean, simple, practical. No skulls decorating the doorway. No dramatic ravens circling overhead. History is usually less theatrical than stories make it seem. The front door creaks open before you even knock. A tall man with gray beginning to creep into his beard studies you quietly. He isn't wearing a black hood. That's another popular myth. Instead, he looks like an ordinary craftsman dressed in sturdy work, clothes stained from years of difficult labor. His eyes examine you for only a moment before he nods. So, you must be the new apprentice. Not exactly the welcome speech you imagined. Still, it could have been worse. He takes your small bag without another word and gestures inside. The workshop smells of sharpened steel, oiled leather, pine wood, and fresh straw. Every tool hangs carefully from wooden pegs. Everything has its place. Precision matters here, far more than heroism. You quickly learn your first lesson. Nothing in this profession happens dramatically. Real work consists mostly of preparation. Cleaning, repairing, organizing, waiting. The dramatic moments people remember often last only a few minutes. Everything else is routine. Your mentor hands you a rough broom. No speech, no ceremony, just sweeping. You spend what feels like hours pushing dust, dried wood, and wood shavings across the floor. Oddly enough, the repetitive motion becomes calming. Perhaps medieval people discovered something modern life often forgets. Simpler work has its own quiet rhythm. Outside, daylight slowly spreads across the rooftops. Merchants begin arranging vegetables. Blacksmiths light their forges. Church bells echo gently through the cool air. Life continues exactly as it always has. Only yours has changed. While sweeping beneath a workbench, you notice dozens of tiny carved symbols scratched into the old wood. Some look like initials, others resemble little stars. Your mentor notices your curiosity. Former apprentices, he says. They all left their mark. Some completed their training. Some didn't. He doesn't explain further. You decide not to ask. Sometimes unanswered questions are gentler companions than difficult answers. The morning continues with buckets of water carried from the nearby well. Wood chopped into neat stacks. Leather straps cleaned with oil. Simple tasks, ordinary tasks. Nothing remotely resembling the frightening stories you've heard since childhood. Perhaps that's the greatest surprise of all. History often hides inside ordinary moments rather than extraordinary ones. As the afternoon sun finally begins warming the yard, your mentor places a plain loaf of rye bread and a bowl of thick vegetable stew onto the table. Neither of you speaks much while eating. Conversation isn't necessary. The quiet itself feels strangely comfortable. Tomorrow, your education truly begins. Today, you're simply learning that the scariest parts of medieval life rarely announce themselves with dramatic music. Instead, they arrive quietly, one ordinary morning, with a knock at the door. Word count, approximately 1090, awaiting continue.